All right, so where we left off, we got our buttons working, right? When we clicked them, we saw the game object that we set to our variable on our tower manager. So now what we want to do is be able to, click anywhere on our game scene after we select a tower. We want to click on the game scene to build our towers, right? So why don't we do that? Let's open up our tower manager script. All right, and here is what we have so far, just our tower button, and then our function that is setting an object to our basically when you push the button, the object connected to it is this, and we're setting it to our local button variable. Okay. All right, so a couple things we have to do. We have to basically know if the mouse clicks, right? We have to know where it's clicking on the scene. And then we have to get a exact point, which is called a world point, so we know where to place our tower game object, okay? So basically we're going to be using Raycasts. And it basically, where we click, it will figure out that vector point, and it will return. It returns a Raycast hit 2D variable, which from that we can find the location of the closest build tile that we can place the object on. Okay. So with that said, we need to go back to our tower manager, and in our update, so this gets called, however many frames per second, 60 frames per second, 30, whatever it's set to, right? But this is the only way we can actually keep track of input from the user on the keyboard, or a mouse in this case. So the first thing we're going to need to do is let's make an if statement, and that's going to be input.get mouse button down. Okay, and then in parentheses, you can go ahead and finish this off. Inside the parentheses, 0 is the left button, 1 is the right button. We care about the left button on the mouse right now, okay? So this basically, if the user pushes the left button, we will get inside of this if statement, right? All right. And then so some built-in really sweet tools. Unity is awesome for this reason. We need a vector 2, and we're not using a vector 3 because we're in a 2D world. We just need X and Y. If it was vector 3, we'd get X, Y, and Z, okay? So we just need a vector 2, and we'll call this our world point. Or you could call it our scene point or our map point, whatever you want to call it. All right, and we're going to get it off the camera. The camera is always there. The camera is what we're looking through to see the scene. So we call our camera, and we need our main camera. And then we need our screen point, screen to world point. All right. And then we want the input of our mouse position. And I know that is a handful of stuff, but you'll get used to all of Unity's built-in tools that make our jobs a lot easier. So input, and then it actually knows where the mouse is. It's really cool. All right, so we're going to take this vector 2 that we just created, and we're going to turn it. We're going to create a. All right, I didn't really like stumbling over the Raycast, so I think we should look at some things here. So, found Unity answers. I found the best answer. And basically what a Raycast, what this is saying is, it's an invisible line that is basically, we're telling it from where we click, it's shooting, down onto the scene until it hits another object. and then it's telling us the point that it intersected something, or, you know, made contact, or, you know, something stopped it from going any further. And that is what a raycast is. And yeah, I just wanted to make it a little more clear. So we are going to create our raycast now. And so it's going to be raycast, and it will self-populate. And we want the 2D one, all right, because we're in a 2D world. And we'll call this our hit. So that's where it ended up hitting. And then you do physics 2D, because everything is 2D for us. And I can't type. Physics 2D dot raycast. And then we want to go to our world point that we just found right here where we clicked. From our origin, our 0, 0 origin, and you can just do, you know, X, Y, 0. You can just type in 0, okay? So it is finding the world point from where we click from 0, 0, which is the lower left corner. So where we click, it's finding the point from shooting an array from 0, 0 to where we click. All right, and that is how we find our raycast hit. All right, so now what we want to do is we could actually, you know, let's write a function called place tower and pass hidden to it. And we could actually, you know, place a tower wherever we click right now. So why don't we do that? I'm going to go ahead and delete this debug so we don't forget we don't need it there. So let's do a public void, and we'll call this place tower because we already wrote it above. All right. And so in our place tower function, what are we looking for? Well, we're passing in a raycast 2D, so we need that here, right? So we need raycast hit 2D, and we'll just call this hit still, so it's the same variable. And why don't we just instantiate our game object right away? So you do that by doing, okay, our game object of new tower, this is the tower that we're going to be placing here, equals instantiate, and then where you want the tower button pressed, because we set that to what object is connected to the button, right? So, but we don't want the button. We want the game object attached to the button. So we need the game object. All right. So game object. Wait, not game object. We want our tower object. There we go. And that's what we created inside of our tower button. See, tower object. So we're getting, and then we set this variable in our inspector, remember? All right, so that's what we want there. And we just made a new instance of it, and now we need a place to put it. So let's call new tower and transform.position. You always have to do the transform, and if you look on a prefab, let's look on a tower prefab. It always has a transform area, and the position's here, so that's what we're actually adjusting. All right, and what do we want this position to be? We want it to be our hit position, right? So we also have to do the same thing here. So hit.transform, we need to set the new tower position to the hit position, just like that. All right, so that should work. I mean, we're not really checking for null or anything, so we could get a crash if we don't click on a button, right? Let's make this full screen. So if I click this button, we got a crash. So what happens here? The problem with the Raycast is the UI is in front of everything. And it shot it from the 0, point in the lower left corner to where we clicked. So we need to make sure that the clicking is disabled where the buttons are. We don't want to click a spot where the button is. So what happened was I clicked a button, but it tried to place the tower underneath the button, but nothing was selected yet. So we got a crash, okay? So a simple way to fix this is Unity's pretty cool. We just need to do a simple if statement, and we want to say if not. So our event system, we need to import, we can delete this. We need to import Unity engine dot event systems. Okay, so save that. All right, we need event systems, event system, there we go. And then current is pointer over game object. All right. So if pointer over game object is false, then you can come into this, right? Okay. So our UI isn't a game object. So that's why that works. And we also want to know if tower button pressed is equal to null, is not equal to null. And that way it can't crash. If we didn't push the button and just click somewhere on the screen, it would crash because we don't have anything set to it. So go ahead and put a closing bracket underneath these, select both these and hit Command or Control, right bracket, square bracket. Okay, so this should stop us from crashing or when we click on the button. So let's go ahead and try it. Object not set to an instance. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, my Unity crashed. That's not good. All right, I'll be right back. All right, guys, so I realized what we forgot to do. The reason we're getting a crash when we're clicking, we actually don't have any box colliders on our ground, so we don't know if anything's happening. So to start with that, we're also going to work on some tagging right now. And basically, you can tag objects. So when things do collide with it, you can check to see if the tag equals something. And if it does, you can do something. If it doesn't, you can do something else. And we'll get into that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need box colliders on basically our ground, our path, and our build sites so we know if a collider hit it, okay? So what we'll do is let's go ahead and just select all the ground pieces. And if we had our scene open, you'd see that they're selected. Yeah, see how that one's selected up in the left corner? All right, so select all these and hit Add Component and go to Physics 2D and then just a simple box collider 2D. All right, and we want these to be is triggered. So things can go through them, things won't actually collide and run into them. That's what is triggered means. So go ahead and hit is triggered, and the only thing that it'll do is it'll notify something else with a collider on it that it hit. And that's when tags come in handy, okay? So we need to add a tag. We already have an enemy tag and a checkpoint tag. So if you remember doing those, let's go ahead and add build site. Okay, so that's cool. We need that. And we need a ground tag. We'll keep them lowercase, sorry. Build site, lowercase. And we don't need a path one. The path one can be ground. We're not building anything on it, but we don't need to differentiate the path from the ground. So what we will do now is select all of our ground pieces with the box collider, and now go to the tags and hit build site. So now all of our build sites are tagged with build site, and then we also want to have them on the collision layer. All right. And let's see, are we forgetting anything else? I think that is good. All right. All right, cool. Now let's go ahead and open up our, let's unselect these. We don't want them selected anymore. All right, so now our path and our ground can all be selected. We have a lot here. I'm not sure if I can do that. Maybe we'll just unselect path. All right, so select your path, all of them, and all your ground pieces inside, okay? We want to add a tag ground, and we also want it part of the collision layer. All right, and then add a component, physics 2, and we need a box collider on this as well, triggered. Okay, so that is that. Those are all set up now. All right, let's save it. And let's see if our placement works now. It might not. Now it's not crashing because it has a box collider, it knows. So now we can click and we can build anywhere. But the problem is we can build anywhere. So we want to restrict the user from building anywhere. We want them to build on a build site only, right? And that's why we name these build site, and then the rest where we don't want them built is ground, all right? All right, and another problem is we can build on top of each other. So we don't want that either. So we're gonna work on all that, but that's pretty cool. We're building towers, like we're placing towers, and okay, so we have some sorting layer issues too we need to work on. But we do that in our tower script. And what we can do with our towers is place the sorting layer higher. So if you go to your prefabs and click on tower, we can select all of them. And sorting layer should actually be items. We want it above everything. And then we also want these, let's place it like number 5 because we don't want enemies to walk in front of them either. And if we need to change it, we'll make adjustments later, but this is good for now. So what I just did was went into our prefabs folder, clicked on towers, highlighted all those game objects, and set them to items sorting layer and put it at layer 5, okay? All right. And let's see our castle. We should make a tag for our towers. So add it with all these selected. Go ahead and go to the tag, add tag, and let's call this tower. All right, cool. Tower. So select them all again, select tower, and then, all right, we'll put them on the collision layer. But nothing's ever gonna collide with them, so it's not that big a deal. Okay, so we want to only place towers on our build site, right? So we have to look for a tag, a collider tag. So if we open up our tower manager again, so right here where we're searching to see if hit is null, we don't actually need this. I was just putting it there to try to stop our crash that we were having. But now we can actually say hit.collider .tag. How cool is that? So we'll set and see if that's equal to our build site. And this has to be typed exactly the same way as your tag. And I used a lowercase b and an uppercase s. I used camel casing. So this will now check if our hit collider is equal to build site, it'll place a tower. All right. So let's save this and let's test this out. So select a tower. Click on the grass, it's not building, and then build site, bam, pretty cool. Build site, bam. Now they're a little off, right? So what's happening is our pivot point, I'm guessing, is in the middle of this object, and it's placing it in the center of the build site. So we have to adjust the pivot of our towers. And that's really easy to do. But now we can't place towers everywhere. We can only place them where we want them, which is really cool. And a problem we'll get to later is we can place towers on top of each other. See the shadow getting darker and darker? So we'll work on that too, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So first, let's worry about our pivots. And where we fix our pivots would be in our sprites, not in our object, because our object actually is referring to our sprites. So all we do is open up our sprites, click on our towers folder, and we care about our archer tower front, our castle tower front. So hit Command or Control if you're on a Windows, and then Knight Post front. Okay, so you can select all these at the same time. And if you come over here where it says pivot, it says center right now. So it's exactly the problem I thought it was. So if you go ahead and click that and hit Custom. Now, I've done this before. That's how I know these numbers. I really just messed around until I was happy with how it looked. So under X, put 0.26, and under Y, you can leave that 0.5. We want it centered still on the Y axis. But the only reason I know this number is because I messed around with it. I ran the project over and over until I found it, and that's really the only way you're ever going to be able to do that. So go ahead and hit Apply now. And that'll apply to everything. And now if we run it and build our towers, look at that. So I thought I've done this before, but clearly I haven't. So what is going on? We still have to move things more. All right, so let's figure out what's going on. Okay, so since the tile is 0, so the pivot point is in the middle. So let's go ahead and make our X also halfway through the tower, and then we'll mess around with 0.3 and so on. So let's go ahead and try this, and let's place a tower. Okay, that looks really good. Let's place this. That one looks a little far forward. I don't like it. And that one looks pretty good. So the only one we'll customize now after that is the castle tower. And so the archer tower and knight tower are 0.5 and 0.3. So on the castle one, let's go ahead and do like 0.5 and hit Apply. And let's try that. And so all this is just tweaking until you're happy. Oh, I went the wrong way. Let's do 0. All right, so now I went way too far. And I don't remember what the other ones were now. 0.3. So maybe 0.2. 0.15. I feel like 0.2 will be too much. So, and yeah, you're just messing with it till you're happy with how it looks. That's a little better. I'm gonna do 0.1. Whoops. Well, I keep going the wrong way, guys. 0.2. And yeah, you're going to run this game a lot. Okay, that's perfect. I love it. 0.2 is right on. Now all of our towers look nicely placed. Sweet. That makes me happy. If you guys don't like it, you're more than welcome to change things around a little bit. I think this is probably a good spot to stop this video. And then next time we will, let's see, what do we have to do? Our towers need to shoot at the enemies, so we should probably start working on some projectile stuff. Now that we placed our towers, we need to give them ranges and the type of projectiles they use, and you know, they have to kill the enemies marching through their kingdom, right? All right, so I will see you guys in a little bit.